If you take a single piece of wood and apply even a moderate amount of downward pressure, it yields instantly. This diagram shows the structural difference. On the left, concentrated force hits a single stick, causing immediate fracture. On the right, tightly bound cylinders dissipate that force evenly across their surface. This binding multiplies load-bearing capacity exponentially, transforming into something far stronger. Centuries before we could map stress distribution on a screen, an aging father used this exact mechanical principle to save his family from collapse. In a small village, a farmer found himself at the end of his life. He was severely ill, and he knew his time was measured in days, not years. The farmer lay awake, gripped less by his failing health than by the volatile dynamic between his 4 sons. They spent their days locked in constant bickering. Every conversation was a battle, and every task was sabotaged by their inability to cooperate. He had tried to intervene dozens of times. He offered advice, he argued for logic, and he pleaded for peace, but his words were treated as background noise. Realizing that logic had failed, the farmer set out to engineer a physical proof, an experience so undeniable that his sons would have no choice but to listen. He summoned his 4 estranged sons to his bedside for one final demonstration. To begin the test, he handed each brother a single, dry wooden stick. On his command, they snapped the sticks. They did so effortlessly, the wood splintering without requiring even a second of real effort. This was the reality of their current lives. An individual standing alone, disconnected from a support structure, is easily broken by any outside force. By remaining divided, each brother was choosing to stay as fragile as that single twig, leaving themselves exposed to the first real pressure that came their way. Next, the farmer produced a thick bundle. It was composed of the same type of sticks, but they were wrapped together in a tight, reinforced coil. He passed the bundle to the oldest son and told him to break it. When he failed, it passed to the second son, then the third, and finally the fourth. Each man strained, their faces reddening with the effort. The bundle didn't even bend. Their individual strength, which had easily snapped a single stick, was completely neutralized by the group. This cross-section shows the physics of their failure. Because the sticks are bound, the force applied to any single point is immediately transferred and absorbed by the entire group. The binding cord ensures that no single stick has to bear the weight alone. The father watched them struggle before speaking his truth. If they lived like that bundle, tightly bound and unified, no external enemy would ever have the power to hurt them. He had shown them that their best defense wasn't individual power, but the structural integrity of their cooperation. Looking at the unbroken bundle and the pile of shattered twigs at their feet, the sons grew silent. The physical evidence of their own vulnerability and isolation was too clear to argue with. The usual shouting matches stopped. They looked at their father, then at each other, and offered the apologies they had withheld for years. They gathered at the farmer's bedside and gave him their word. From that day forward, they would work as a single unit. A single visual metaphor had managed to dismantle a decade of resentment in a matter of minutes. This new alliance had an immediate, unintended effect on the farmer's own condition. The relief of seeing his sons finally united acted as a powerful restorative. With the crushing weight of their future finally settled, the farmer's body began to mend, leading to a recovery that seemed impossible days earlier. The family moved forward together, protected by a bond that made them far more resilient than they ever were as individuals. True strength is not a solo endeavor. It is found in the unbreakable bonds we choose to